Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. In today's video I have one more dupe of the Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde palette here. Now when I filmed the last Mercury Retrograde dupe video, which wasn't that long ago actually, I said that that was the last dupe video review of this palette. However, at the time I wasn't aware that W7 came out with their own version, which is called Total Eclipse, and I don't know why I didn't think of W7, because they did a very good dupe of the new nude palette from Huda, which was called Socialite, and that was actually one of the best dupes of the new nude palette as far as I'm concerned. So I don't know why I didn't think that they would come out with a dupe of the Mercury Retrograde palette as well, but it just didn't occur to me. But here we are. I did manage to get this for, I believe, about £7 or £8. Very typical dupe palette price. It is a UK brand, so it was relatively quick delivery. Unfortunately, I still don't know how you can get hold of these in the USA. Here in the UK, they are quite accessible. They sell them in B&M, in TK Maxx, and of course online on eBay and Amazon as well. And W7 also have their own website, so they are very accessible as far as I'm concerned. Now the official price of the dupe palette is £9.50, but like I said, you can very easily get it cheaper than that. For whatever reason, W7 always advertises its palettes a lot more expensive on their own websites than you can get them on eBay and Amazon, so I wouldn't really bother buying it from them, but the official price is £9.50. Now this palette was made in China. I don't believe they sell it in China. However, we don't have any cruelty-free or vegan sticker on this palette. It has 18 months shelf life, which is quite average. The Huda Beauty palette has 24 months officially. As I said it many times before, I wouldn't bother too much about that. I would just use them for the 36 months that you can use basically all powder products. Obviously, over the time, the performance will start declining. You will notice that. So when that starts bothering you, you probably want to replace the palette. You have 18 pans in both palettes, and in the dupe palette they contain 18 grams of product, so basically 1 gram in each pan, whilst in the original palette you only get 16.1 gram of product. This is, as far as I know, the least product you get in any of these 18 pan Huda Beauty palettes. It's very sad because, for example, in the Desert Dusk palette you got almost 10 gram more product than you got in this one, and you are paying more for this palette. It's £58. It is her most expensive palette so far. I must say though that as far as I'm concerned, the quality and the variety you get in this palette is also the best so far. So in that sense, I can understand that she pushed the price up to £58. However, like I said, it contains significantly less product than her previous palettes did. And just a quick comparison, the Natasha Denona 15 pan palettes contain 37.5 grams of product, and they cost £111. So that's about £2.96 per gram. Whilst in the Huda Beauty palette, you pay £58 for 16.1 gram of product, which means you're paying £3.60 per gram. So actually, the Huda Beauty eyeshadows are more expensive per gram than the Natasha Denona ones, and I'm gonna just show you a couple of swatches side by side so you can see the difference in quality. This is the dark shade Vortex from Huda, and this is the dark shade Log from the Gold palette. This is the shade Gold Glitch from Huda. This is the shade Alchemist from the Gold palette. And here is a lighter brown shade, Crush, from the Huda palette. And a lighter brown shade, Sandstone, from the Natasha Denona palette. I mean, I'm sorry, but the Huda Beauty shades are not on par with the Natasha Denona shades, and they cost more. So anyway, back to the topic of this video, which is the W7 dupe. I am going to include some swatches for you now of the two palettes side by side. As you can see, the tones and the shades are extremely similar. As always, you have the Huda Beauty swatches on the bottom and the W7 swatches on the top. What I was very pleased about this palette is that they copied all of the textures. So every single shade has the same texture that they have in the original palette. Some of them in the original palette have a bit of a glitter in them. Some of them have larger chunks of glitter in them, like the shade Supermoon does. And I feel like this W7 palette was the very first palette that actually copied the texture as well, not just the colors. So far, my favorite dupe was the Bubble Nebula from the brand called Changeable, which is basically, as far as I know, the same company as You Can Be. For whatever reason, they started running a separate line of eyeshadow palettes under the name Changeable as well, which are lesser quality than the You Can Be palettes. However, for whatever reason, You Can Be hasn't been coming out with dupes recently. I don't really know what's going on with them. They used to come out with dupes super quickly, and I haven't seen really any dupe of this palette from them yet, or any other palette for that matter. So yes, as far as the swatches go, everything looks amazing. However, now I'm gonna start inserting footage of me creating this eye makeup look. Before I do that, of course, I created this eye using the original palette as always, and I used the dupe palette on this side. I feel like in person they are extremely similar. Maybe on camera that contrast is not really there. I promise you, in person they look the same. For whatever reason, sometimes some shades on the camera just reflect more. Maybe they're just not as matte, and that's why, but I'm not exactly sure. In person it looks the same, on camera it doesn't. The very first shade I used in my crease was the shade of Balance. In the dupe palette, this shade is called Milky Way. By the way, every single shade in the dupe palette is in the same order, but they have different names. So they have very cute little names. Like I said, the palette is called Total Eclipse, and so every single shade is called something galactic, something space related. It's very cute, very similar theme to what the original Huda Beauty palette has. So once again, I applied Off Balance on the crease. And once I was done with that, I started working with the shade Hot Mess, which is this burgundy shade in the palette. In the dupe palette, it's called Little Dipper, and this is where the problem started, because in the original palette, it's a gorgeous burgundy shade, very easy to build up, and first it starts out a bit sheer, but you keep going and you keep adding more and more, and it actually builds up to a quite cool toned burgundy color, very gorgeous, especially with the other shades that I used for this look. However, in the dupe palette, the shade Little Dipper did not want to build up for my life. It just stayed so sheer. As you can see from the footage, I kept going back with more and more and trying to add it, but it just did not work. After that, I went in with Vortex from the Huda Beauty palette. That is the darkest shade in this palette, very cool toned purple shade, and I added that in the inner and the outer corner, and I created a bridge with this shade on the top. In the dupe palette, this shade is called Latitude, and I must say that this shade was not amazing, but it did the job. So every flaw Little Dipper had, Latitude fixed it, and that is why today's look looks the way it does. Once again, it is not exactly the same quality as the Huda Beauty one, but it did the job. After that, I went off camera and I cut my crease, and then I took the shade called Supernova in the center of that concealer. This shade is called Horizon in the dupe palette, and I must say that these two are identical. They did a very good job with the shimmery shades in this dupe palette. They are all absolutely identical to the original shimmery shades. So if the shimmery shades are what you're here for, then this is an amazing dupe, because quality-wise and texture-wise, they just managed to copy everything. I went back with a bit of Hot Mess, which is once again this burgundy shade, the one that didn't really work on the dupe side, and I did this on the two sides of the concealer to kinda blend it together with the original look. And I must say that on top of the concealer, Little Dipper did the job. I didn't actually have any issue with it at this point. So once I was done with all of this, I took a hint of Galaxy and applied it just the very center of this look using my finger. In the dupe palette, this shade is called Solar. Now, once my makeup was all done, I went back with again this Hot Mess burgundy shade under my eye, and again I didn't have a problem with Little Dipper. The very last shade I took for this look was the white shade that I always use from this palette in my inner corner called Supermoon. In the dupe palette, this shade is called Orion. So once again, this is the look that I created. They are basically identical. The one problem I had was with the shade Little Dipper. Now, I haven't tried every single shade from this palette. Most of them I only swatched. And when I did the swatches, I had absolutely no issue with any of these shades. They were super good. I am quite pleased with this palette. I would say that it is on par with the Bubble Nebula palette if this burgundy shade wasn't as bad as it is. Unfortunately, the matte shades in this palette are not really anything outstanding. They are very typical dupe palette quality, meaning that they grab onto the skin as long as the skin has no powder on it yet. But when you're trying to build them up or you're trying to place them on top of an existing shade, you are going to run into problems. The shimmery shades are absolutely gorgeous though, and with most shades I would actually say that they are better than the original one. So this is a very good dupe for the Mercury Retrograde palette. I have said many times already that this Huda Beauty palette is super overpriced, but to be honest with you, I don't actually have a problem with Huda. I think in general most eyeshadow palettes and well most makeup are super overpriced. Well, that's just the world we live in, I guess. You just have to decide what's worth it for you. I would say that this Total Eclipse palette is a good dupe. If you have it in the store and you wanna pick it up, you definitely could. However, I still think that the Bubble Nebula was a better dupe. For me personally, that is still my favorite. Let me know in the comments down below if you tried any of these dupe palettes and what did you think about them. Also let me know if you have the Mercury Retrograde palette. Honestly, for me, this is still the most beautiful Huda Beauty palette and I absolutely love it. As you can see, I have used these shades quite a lot. I unfortunately hit my pen on my very favorite shade called Nebula. I do love these shades and I love that It's so colorful, especially the top row. It's so gorgeous, and I do really love the shades that we worked with in today's video as well. So I do love this palette. I just feel like £58 for the very average performance that you get from this palette is just not justified, especially when you have companies like BH Cosmetics, Colourpop, Juvia's Place doing actually better quality eyeshadow palettes for less money. Then I'm just not comfortable with the price point of this palette. So let me know in the comments down below if you have this palette from Huda. I would really be interested to see how many of you guys have it. And also let me know if you have any of the dupes and how did you find them. If you like this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, because I would love to have you here. And until next time, take care of yourself. I will see you guys very soon. Bye.